Okay, ABSers, we are going to go high tech today, and I thought it would be interesting to do an interview, but I am going to interview artificial intelligence today because I know a lot of people these days in golf are very tech oriented. So today we will go right into the jaws of technology, and I'm going to pull up the AI platform and ask the AI some questions about golf and see if we can't learn something. I'm sure I will learn some things. And these will be my questions for AI. Of course, people are probably familiar with my position on the game in general, that sort of thing. I have questioned the direction that the game has been going for quite a long time. But let's see what kind of conclusions, if any, that the great wizard in the sky of AI might tell us. Okay, so question number one will be about AI. Is AI based upon opinion? Okay, is AI based upon opinion? AI is not based upon opinion. Okay, well, we got that out of the way. So this is not based upon my opinion, because I certainly have opinions, and everything I say is an opinion. But AI, okay, not an opinion. Now, I don't know if you believe that or not, but we'll go with that because we have to trust technology nowadays, right? If AI says it's not opinion based, then we're assuming that it's purely objective. Okay. So my next question is, what are the top stick and ball games in the world? What are the top stick and ball games in the world? Okay, the top stick and ball games in the world are: number one, cricket. Yes, with 2.5 billion people, fans, followers, etc. Number two, baseball. 500 million baseball fans. 500 million, that's a lot. Number three, our sport, golf. The traditional game, 450 million. So almost the same as baseball, but not quite. But we're in the ballpark. Cricket having five times as many fans as golf. Cricket by far the most popular stick and ball game on planet Earth. So, cricket, baseball, golf. Okay? So we'll go with that. We know that now. Okay. My next question for AI is, and I don't really know this, but does cricket still use wooden bats? Yes, cricket still uses wooden bats. Okay. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? That the biggest stick and ball game in the world is still using wood bats. And we know in baseball they're using wood bats as well. So we don't need to ask that question. And not here in the US, we know this. Okay, so I will now ask, well, I'm curious actually, why does cricket still use wood bats? So we'll ask, why does cricket still use wood bats? Cricket bats in 2025 are still made predominantly from wood, specifically English willow, which remains the gold standard for professional and amateur play. Cricket is a traditional sport, and changes to equipment are approached with caution to protect the game's heritage and character. Thus, the tradition of leather on the willow continues in modern cricket. Okay, well, that's kind of interesting. So the biggest stick and ball game in the world is claiming that their sport is traditional and that changes to equipment are approached with caution to protect the game's heritage and character. So apparently cricket isn't in a we need to grow the game phase because they're the biggest. They don't need to grow anymore. They have 2.5 billion fans, so wood's okay. But I guess if you're trying to grow the game like golf, then you have to do something else. They're trying to catch up with cricket, though we got a long ways to go. But maybe they have golf has something else in mind here. I don't know. But certainly is not the traditional game that it once was. Okay, let's move on. And let's look at wooden bats in baseball. And we know this. Why does baseball still use wood bats? Well, let's find out. Okay. Baseball. Wooden bats have been a core part of professional baseball since the sport's inception. Well, just like golf. Hickory clubs, wood heads, since the inception. Baseball stayed with this, golf has gone a totally different direction. Okay, back to the AI. They are seen, wooden bats in baseball are seen as iconic, and their continued use maintains an authenticity and heritage of the game. The crack of a wooden bat is emblematic to baseball. Well, I feel the same way about hitting a persimmon driver in golf. It feels emblematic to golf to me. The sound of a balata golf ball coming off a persimmon driver, it's a much more beautiful sound than the clank or the modern plastic golf ball coming off a titanium driver. That clicky, screechy sound, it's absolutely horrible to my ears. Certainly as a musician, I'm also a musician, so I'm a little more sensitive to sound, I think, than maybe some people. Certainly prefer the sound of the wood off the softer rubber balata balls. Okay, back to AI. Baseball. Wooden bats have a smaller sweet spot and are less forgiving, which require greater skill and precision from hitters. Well, apparently baseball thinks that's a good thing. Golf, well, it's a bad thing, apparently. Baseball says, allowing non-wood bats would fundamentally change the nature of the game. Yes, of course, because golf courses become obsolete when the ball goes 50 yards farther. Golf courses don't make sense anymore. Any more than baseball stadiums would make sense if the ball went 50 yards farther or even 50 feet farther. They'd have to expand the stadiums, push the outfields back, tear everything down. I mean, does that make sense? No. The big question here is there anything wrong with baseball? I don't think most baseball fans think there's anything wrong with it. There might be some little arguments here and there, but not too much. Apparently golf seems to feel like something was really wrong with golf to have to make these radical changes to the game. Well, okay, back to AI. While wooden bats can break and pose their own risks, metal and composite bats can propel balls at even higher speeds, increasing the danger for pitchers and infielders. There is a concern that if major league players use metal bats, balls could be even hit harder, potentially exceeding 130 miles per hour off the bat, putting fielders at risk. Okay, I've heard this argument before about baseball, that one of the reasons that they stay with wood. And golfers like to use this and say, well, that's why baseball does that. But I don't know about that. I would say college baseball. Well, I've known some really strong kids in college baseball. I've known some college baseball players. Big, strong, can hit the ball hard. Really, really hard. Coming off the aluminum bats. I don't know about that. I would say that college players are probably at risk with this. So maybe college should use wood too? I think it's probably something else. Which leads to another conversation, really. Who's making the decisions here about golf? I've tended to believe that it's the USGA's fault, that they've let the cat out of the bag. And obviously, they're admitting they've made a mistake because they're talking about rolling the ball back. Well, why would they roll the ball back? Why? Because they made a mistake. They allowed this. Now they're saying no. They made the mistake, and now they're going to punish the people, the golfers. Roll the ball back. Do you want the ball rolled back? No. I don't want the ball rolled back. Because it's not the ball. The ball's not the problem. It's the club is the problem, okay? And this is easy enough to prove. Let's take Rory McIlroy, who's hitting the ball 320, 330 yards with the modern driver and ball. When they gave him a persimmon driver when he was at Cherry Hills, they say, hey, can you hit the green here like Arnold Palmer did? He was by the green. Palmer knocked down the green. They said he hit it about 285, 290 yards, not 330 yards. Okay, that's with the modern ball and persimmon. Now, if it was just the modern ball, then I'd be hitting the ball 50 yards farther off persimmon because it's just the ball, right? Just the ball. It's not the ball, it's the club. I think recently Tony Jacklin commented that with all the problems and controversy surrounding the game right now and the ball going too far, he just said, go back to persimmon. Problem solved. Okay, who makes the rules? The USGA? Or I'm going to say this. Suppose the PGA Tour said, no, you're in the big leagues now. You're in the show. Okay, you're going to hold a piece of lumber and you're going to try and hit a 90-mile-an-hour breaking ball. Big league stuff, okay? This is now college. You want to use aluminum bats, titanium. The ruling body of the Major League Baseball, they don't care what's going on in college. They don't care what's going on in your local baseball leagues or softball leagues or what's happening at corporate games or any of that stuff. They're only concerned with what's going on at the show in the big leagues. If the PGA Tour would have taken that position when Metalwoods first came out, they said, no Metalwoods. This is the big leagues. You're in the show. Okay, I know you used to use those things in college, and you might have grown up on that stuff in junior golf, but you're in the big leagues. You're at the show. Here's your stick of lumber. Okay, what does that do? That sets the bar. That sets the precedent at the highest level, and people are excited about that, motivated by that. Now, I'm a little bit of a baseball fan. I don't follow it, like I used to maybe as a kid. But if I were to want to know what that's like to hit a baseball in a major league ballpark, and if I had my fantasy day, and it's like, John, you can live out this fantasy, and I'd say, okay, take me to Yankee Stadium, put me in the batter's box, and I want to see what a 90-mile-an-hour breaking ball looks like coming down the pipe, and I want to take a swing at this thing and see if I can even get the bat on it, and what would it be like to hit one out of the park? Well, I probably wouldn't do very well, because that's the highest level. But I'd want to try that, just like the amateur golfer wants to go to those back tees and see where the pros, where did Tiger and Phil and whoever your favorite player is, wow, look at this, they were back here hitting the ball. I think it's the same kind of thing. You set the bar, and people want to experience that. If the pros were hitting persimmon, a lot more people would be hitting persimmon. People would say, I want to play the pro game, or a younger player. I want to prepare myself for the tour. I'm going to learn on wood. I'm going to learn on persimmon. this big frying pan driver and the trampoline effect and all this. The trampoline effect, what is that? Well, I mean, just common sense. When I was a kid jumping on a trampoline, the big trampolines would get me higher in the air than the little ones at the gym that people jog on. You try and jump on that, you might get up a couple feet. Big trampolines putting you way up there. Big head, big trampoline effect, right? So that's technology, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's a place for that. It's called long drive competitions. Long drive competitions have their own technology. Embrace that. Let's see how far a human can project a small white sphere through the air. You know, I would say in long drive contest, why even have any fairway restrictions? Just make it a big circle and just go from the center. How far can somebody just project a golf ball from the center with all the tech or whatever and just bring it on? And there have been people that have been able to, you know, make their livings just driving the long ball. So I think that's there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with technology striving for advancement. But I think the PGA Tour, really thinking about it more in hindsight, looking back and kind of living through that time as well, when the first, you know, metalwoods came out, I understand why the USGA allowed it at the time, because the early metalwoods, it didn't hit the ball farther. They played basically the same as persimmon drivers because they had the same weight, same shaft length, the same hitting area, 3 inches wide by 1.5 inches high. And the deep face drivers would go 1 3/4 inches or 2 inches high, deep face. But the typical metalwoods were a little lower center of gravity. You could hit them off the fairway, and a guy could drop a 2-wood. It was like having a driver and a 2-wood in the bag. You could use that to try and get on a par 5 into. It wasn't a game changer. It was just a preference thing. So that went on until sometime later in the 1990s. Then the head started to get big. The shafts got longer. You add 2 inches, 3 inches in length, and drop the weight of the whole thing from 13, 14 ounces down to 10 ounces. And you've got this long, lightweight thing with this giant head and a trampoline effect. And they're talking about rolling the ball back? It's not the ball, okay? It's not the ball. Any of you that are hitting the modern driver, go hit a persimmon driver, and then come back here and tell me that it's just the ball. It's not. It's not. So I don't even have respect for people that are even saying, oh, it's the ball. Just it's silly. It's absolute silliness. Okay, well, if we take a look at golf versus baseball and tradition, okay, let's just talk that aspect of it, okay? Golf versus baseball tradition. Okay, AI. Baseball has remained committed to wood bats primarily due to tradition, game integrity, and performance regulation, while golf has moved away from wood drivers because of technological innovation and the absence of similar constraints. So, golf doesn't have these constraints of regulation. Oh, but now they do. Now they're changing the now they're putting all kinds of limits on the size of the club and all this sort of stuff, right? Because they made a mistake. They're admitting they made a mistake. They're admitting it. That's why they're talking about rolling the ball back and, oh, the drivers now can only be this. But, this should have happened a long time ago. Long time ago. They made a mistake, okay? Back to AI. Baseball's adherence to wood bats is enforced by tradition and formal rules to protect the character of the game. Protect the character of the game. Did golf do that? No. Did not do that. Golf freely adopted superior materials to enhance performance, facing no comparable regulatory barriers. And there you go. A game of tradition? No, golf didn't do that. Golf did not do that. Okay, my final question is going to be, How has technology affected golf? Technology in clubs and golf balls has diminished the skill and challenge of the game. Modern equipment makes the game easier by increasing distance and forgiveness, which reduces the importance of technique and hard work. Whoa. Well, there you have it. People don't want to work hard, I guess. It goes on to say, this can lead to a game dominated by power rather than skill, making it harder for shorter hitters or less powerful players to compete at high levels. Well, how long have I been saying this? It's interesting that me, as the anti-tech person, is now embracing technology with AI, and AI seems to be very agreeing with me at this point regarding this. So, that being said, just some food for thought here, things to think about. I guess probably why I've remained a persimmon player for all of these reasons. I enjoy the challenge and the skill and the precision, and I don't have a problem with work ethic, okay? And when I go out and play, I like the sound, the aesthetic, the feel of that. Just like the cricket, the willow and the leather, right? You know, there's something to that. There's a beauty to that too. So anyway, all right. Well, here's my rant here, and I've ranted for a while, but some things I've been thinking about, and the main points really are that golf is not a traditional game. It was, but it isn't anymore. And who do you point the finger at? Well, it's easy to point the finger at the USGA. I think there is a finger to be pointed there. However, I do believe, you know, thinking about it more, that the PGA Tour could have just put their foot down and said, not in the show, baby. Not here. You can use all that stuff. And I really think that that's the better option. If the PGA Tour said no, okay, then that's not saying college golf, they can do what they want. Amateur golf, do what you want. Play by USGA rules. All this stuff's legal. USGA can say anything, make the heads this big or whatever, and the ball can go a mile or whatever. That's fine. Those are the rules of the game. But not at the show. Not the PGA Tour. You get your tour card, and you're in the big leagues now. Okay, you're at the show. I think the PGA Tour is the one that could have stopped all this craziness from going on, because this conversation about rolling back the ball and all these kind of things, I don't think they're having these conversations in cricket, which is the biggest stick and ball game in the world, or in baseball, which is bigger than golf, not having these conversations. The idea that the equipment companies are running the game is absolutely absurd. I mean, you would have the rules of the game. If the PGA Tour said, equipment companies, you can do whatever you want, you can make those clubs, you can sell them to the public, fine. You can sell them to the USGA, fine. The USGA wants to hold their own events and make those legal, that's fine. PGA Tour, Big leagues, you're in the show, okay? Only authorized equipment that the PGA Tour would authorize as being viable for competition at that level. So, me being a professional and playing on various PGA Tours around the world, I come from that place, and I think that, again, it sets the bar. And I think younger players, if they saw the PGA Tour, and these are the guys making millions of dollars out there, and you want to have a career and you want to play against the best in the world, maybe the younger players would be hitting persimmon if the PGA Tour was a persimmon tour, right? Younger players coming up through college might demand, hey, I want to get ready. I want to get ready for the big leagues here, you know? College golf might bend also and play persimmon and blades and balata and that sort of thing. Get the college players ready for the show. So, something I've been thinking about a little bit. I'm going to sign off now. But anyway, thanks for listening to another one of my rants. I got to do these once in a while. I just have to. Okay, we'll get back to swing theory and all that other good stuff and Hogan and all that stuff. But I don't really make these videos unless I feel genuinely inspired to do so. And today, or over the last couple weeks, I've been thinking about this stuff a lot, especially after watching the U.S. Open. I did talk about some of that on the ABS website. I won't go into that here, but I wanted to focus on this. So I also want to do another video soon and talk about the rules of the game a little bit and what we did a few years ago at the TRGA. So we'll save that for another video. We'll see you next time. Over and out.